Hey everyone, it's Fox from Model Making Guru, and it is Fox from Model Making Guru. How you doing, guys? Just a really, well, I was about to say really quick video, but I don't do quick videos because, you know, I waffle, I get on a tangent, I start talking endlessly, and I'm doing it now. Anyway, I was having a conversation on one of my posts, and now I apologise because I can't remember who it was that mentioned it, and I can't find the comment now. But we mentioned my old land speeder kit, and he said, "Why don't you show your old land speeder? We'd love to see it." And I thought, you know what I'll do? I'll show you some of my old builds, because a number of builds I did over the years, in the last 5 or 6 years, I did before I was on YouTube. They were written up on the old .guru site, but I no longer own the .guru site, so I choose not to send you there. Because as you now know, the new website, the current website, is modelmakingguru.com. And I haven't got round to adding the old write-ups or all of them yet, because it takes a long time and I probably won't get round to it. So I thought what I'd do is do a little quick video just showing you some of those older builds that you may have seen in photographs, but you won't have seen them in real life, as it were. Say write-ups are long gone. If they're still there, I'm not going to direct you to that website because I no longer own it. But yes, so I thought I'd do this little video. It's going to be a quick look at the old builds I've still got. Many of them have since either long gone, been sold, given away, or one I actually destroyed by snapping it in half deliberately, but we'll go into that later. So anyway, on to the old models. Hope you enjoy this. So cute, so cute. That's not my belly sticking out, by the way. I'm just kind of leaning back when I'm just next bit. Okay, let's start with the big bad boy. This is my Fine Moulds Millennium Falcon. I made this, 4 or 5 years ago? Yeah, I was still finding my feet, still finding my way around. There are a few major goofs on this model. First and foremost, yeah, I did that upside down. Dope. So yeah, that's upside down. Hello. I also, the fins on the back here, if you look on the underside you can't see, but they're the wrong way around. I got so excited making this thing. So the little veins on the back are the wrong way around. But I was really proud of this when I did it. It's not quite the right colour. If I remember rightly, I painted it, I was using rattle cans at the time. This was pre-airbrush. So I used Tamiya AS16 as the base coat. Then with washes of thin Tamiya smoke, a couple of washes of thin Tamiya smoke, and then oil paints for the streaking, and I did a dot filter with oil paints as well as streaks. I mean, it came out all right. It came out pretty good. Now, so yeah, this is about 4 or 5 years old. I was still learning. It's a beautiful kit. To date, still, this is the best Millennium Falcon kit you can get, if you can find one. They no longer make it anymore. It's out of production. The only way to get this kit is to find an old Fine Moulds print, which will cost you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars because they're just stupid prices. This is about 300 quid, and it was still in production at the time. Or this is now available under the Revell Master line. Yes, you know what I think about Revell, but they do, or have, well, they worked with Fine Moulds so that their Master range, their supposed high quality kits that they make, are actually just Fine Moulds kits made by Fine Moulds and badged up as a Revell kit. It's the only way Fine Moulds can make their kits. So until, say, Bandai comes out with the 1/72nd version, this is 1/72 scale, the Revell one is the best you're going to get in the US, because apparently it's only US available. Typical Revell. So if you're outside the US, if you can get a copy of the Revell one, you're basically buying this. It's well worth the $300. It cost about 300 quid in its day anyway. It's 900 parts. It's beautifully designed. It's not 100% accurate, but we're quibbling minor points here. So yeah, if you can get one of these Fine Moulds ones, well, I wouldn't bother because they're going to be like $700, $800, $900 or more. You can also buy this pre-made. If I remember rightly, emodels.co.uk had one. It comes in a display case pre-made. They had one. They may still have it. So hit up the guys at emodels.co.uk and ask them if they still have one of these in stock. They had one pre-made, pre-painted, pre-weathered. But yeah, this was my first major kit when I came back into the hobby. Well, I think it came after the U-boat actually, so, but it's still a major kit. It's a big, massive undertaking. This isn't the one I did for the commission build. That was far superior. One of the lessons to learn with this This is too big to go in my display cabinet, so it's sat on top of my display cabinet for the last 3, 4 years, 5 years maybe. This is what happens when you leave a model exposed to the air in a room where people smoke. It wasn't quite this yellow. There's nothing I can do about it now, but hey, what are you going to do? It doesn't fit in any of my cabinets. So that is the Fine Molds 177 Millennium Knocklaff, or if you do it the right way, Millennium Falcon. You can see there the decal has yellowed, and that's again probably because it's been in a room where people smoke. So yeah, if you've got smokers in your house, then yes, put things in cabinets or cases. It just keeps them as pristine as possible. Luckily, it's the Millennium Falcon, so it's not the end of the world. It's supposed to look rough and ready anyway. Right, on to the next one. Okay, and on to the next one. This is another Fine Molds kit. This is Fine Molds 1/48 scale Snow Speeder. It's a beautiful little kit. And the one beautiful thing about the Fine Molds kit is that when they give you the water slide decals, they include clean and chipped decals, so you get a mixture, so you can do whatever you want. This is the standard kit here, just painted in the... I always found that Luke's Snow Speeder with the grey stripes was a bit boring, so yeah, I gave it the orange stripes. It's kind of a hodgepodge. It's not too accurate. The chipping they give you on the decals for their kits is actually reasonably screen accurate as well, which is the amazing thing. So yeah, basically it was built and assembled. Didn't use the stand that came with it. Got myself a little wooden base from the hardware store. Painted it up, used the decal from the kit, and that's just powdered. It's a diorama snow powder, and it was mounted on this little brass rod, which you can't see here, which was just, the hole was drilled into the bottom, and it was glued into that. And this is actually super glued onto the brass rod because I was still figuring out how to do display bases. But I'll give you a look underneath. Let's have a look underneath, if it will show. You've got there all the detail, little bits of streaks. It's a really, really lovely little kit. Again, these are all out of print now, so if you can find, let me just focus on that. Get a bit closer, why not? So if you can find one for sale, snap it up, because again, right now, Fine Molds are the most accurate Star Wars kits you're going to get, apart from the master releases from Revell. Don't even think about buying a Revell Star Wars kit unless it's a master release, because if it is, you're basically buying the Fine Molds one, so you're probably fairly safe. But any other Revell kit, just don't even bother. So that is the 1/48 scale Snow Speeder Gefahrten. On to the next one. Next we have again another Fine Molds one. I did a real Fine Molds kick when I first got back into the hobby. I wanted to build some Star Wars kits that I've made from my youth, and Fine Molds was the best option, as I've said so far. So this is their 1/72 scale X-Wing. It comes with a whole mess of decals to make different markings. Red 5, obviously, red 3, I think, red 2. What I decided with this one was to make it red 2.5, because I wanted to mix and match the different coloured decals and stripes and patches. So it's not screen accurate, it's a made up one. It's red 2.5 pilot, Spanky McGlick, who was a bit rubbish pilot. So there you go, that's where the story comes from. And it's just basically mix and match the decals and painted up. The Snow Speeder was done in, just remembered, Snow Speeder was done in, I think, just flat white. These are all rattle cans again. This was my rattle can phase. Tamiya rattle cans. Snow Speeder was done in, I think, just flat white, given washes of smoke and then the weathering on top, pastels and oils. This was, I think this was painted Humbrol Sea Grey as a base coat, if I remember. This is several years ago. Humbrol Sea Grey, and then very lightly canned over with white. I didn't want to use the AS16 that I used on the Falcon because it was a bit too dark. So I used white on here and then darkened it with, again, thin Tamiya smoke, and then oils dry brushed and streaked over the top. And the chipping was done. You can see the sea grey there where the chips are underneath. It was painted that first to then use masking fluid over the sea grey, and then the white painted on the top. And it was painted lightly so I could get some pre-shading. Base was custom made, just a chunk of wood I got from the hardware store. Painted it up, did some pretend chipping on it, again sea grey and then white on top. Masked a bit and used the decal from the kit. And it came out alright. Again, brass rod. I think this has inside it, what I did was I got the brass rod, and I got a die and tap set, put a thread on the end of the rod, which you can see here. And inside there, I drilled a hole, and inside is a very small nut, the same diameter as the thread on the brass rod. And I just super glued the nut in place with some filler putty around it to hold it in place, and the rod just screws in the bottom. So this one's a bit more permanently attached, or a bit more flexible, and you can take it off if you want to. So I don't think it's glued into the base, I think it's just loose, but it's such a tight fit, it's fine. So it's beautiful little X-Wing, 1/72 scale. Canopy was a bit of a fiddle because it's so small. You get decal for the canopy, but I didn't bother using that. There is a tiny spot of glue on the canopy somewhere, or something splodged on it, but really, really tiny. But yeah, it's really cool. I really enjoyed that little kit. Then after this, I made the 1/48. I also chose an R5 droid because it was easier to paint than the R2 droid, which was a living nightmare. And the decals didn't work out on the R2. And then what happened was I lost the R2 in the garden somewhere when I was painting this outdoors in the summer. So that is the Fine Molds 1/72 X-Wing. Again, I don't know if this will come out as part of Revell's Master Kit kits, or whether it's never going to be seen again. Again, you can probably still find them here and there, but as usual, Fine Molds don't make them anymore. So if you do find this kit, it'll cost you a fortune. For 1/72 scale, paying hundreds of dollars, it's not worth it. It's not actually worth it, I would say. To find an original Fine Molds, it's just not worth it. So unless you can find a Fine Molds and it's like, 20, 30 quid, because this was about 35, 40 quid when I bought it, when it was still in production. Nowadays, I wouldn't bother. There's other X-Wing kits out there. Bandai's is just as good. Their big 1/48 scale snap fit is just as good, maybe a little bit more detailed in places, and it's a lot cheaper. And their 1/72 is a lot cheaper. So that's this one. On to the next one. Okay, and on to the next one. This is where you get me to admit to making a Revell kit. This is the Revell, yes I know, Revell Easy Kit. Yes, I know, it's a Revell Easy Kit. Sorusub Land Speeder. Now, I mentioned this the other day, and it was requested that I show this. As a kit in itself, it's really basic, it's really simple, there's not a lot of detail to it, but it's the right shape, everything looks fine. You kind of need to do some custom work to it. You could just paint it out the box and it'd look alright, it would be a bit basic, but you can add stuff to it. And what I've done with this, obviously I've made a diorama, but I did add a lot of custom detailing to it. I got myself the Italeri 1/24 scale truck stop kit, which is basically lots of accessories, things like the spades and the boxes and crates, and this vent off here and things like that, toolkits for trucks, and if you're making a truck stop diorama. This bit on the bonnet here, I've not done this as Luke's speeder, just a generic land speeder. This thing here is actually the air conditioning unit for a truck, with a panel on top, which is from the Tamiya 135th Tiger 4, Panzer 4. We have tools and stuff and crates from the truck stop kit. This is a toolkit. These aren't glued on, they're just loose. Got some tools from the toolkit. The figure, which has just gone off screen, fantastic. And I'll go up in with the camera in a minute, handy-heldy, and give you a proper look. The figure is a Verlinden 1/24 scale, I think, Luftwaffe pilot, but I painted him up just to look a bit more Star Warsy, a bit more steampunky, that kind of thing, like he's some kind of bloke in the Star Wars universe. So he's got little stripes on his pockets and he's got decal on the back of his head. I also added inside the cockpit, and I'll show you in a moment, there's various bits from the Tamiya 135th Panzer 4. The bedding roll on the back here is actually a piece of, I think, t-shirt material, but I can't quite remember. It's some canvassy t-shirty type material that I rolled up, painted in thin white glue, painted, and then made some leather strapping out of bits of plastic card. There's lots of bits of fuse wire in the engine here, just to give it some details. Fuse wire on here. There's fuse wire around the back, again I can't show you. And when it comes round, I'll show you the bits on the back as well. The diorama was made of just a piece of wood with some modelling clay, I can't remember which one it was, made into a rough landscape, and then it was sprinkled liberally with smashed up house bricks. These are smashed up house bricks. Well, some of it was a kit I got where you can make plaster of Paris rocks from a mould. You can't really see on the back here, I'll have to show you in the camera when I move the camera, but I put some wires on the back. Yeah, some of them are bits of plaster of Paris rocks that I made using a mould, and some of them are just chunks of house brick, and then bits of ballast sprinkled around it and diorama gravelly things. That was all drenched for a few days over and over and over with thinned down white glue, just sprayed over the top to let it dry, spray more on, let it dry, spray more, and that basically built up a glue layer to hold it in place as best as possible. And then it was all airbrush painted with deck tan and red brown and other earth tones. There is down here, you can't see it, a bucket from the Italeri kit that looks like it's filled with oil that's leaking from the engine, because this is subtitled Bad Day to Break Down, I decided. The bucket itself has oil in there, and that's basically just made of clear PVA glue. Put some in, filled it to the top, let it dry, it shrinks away to a bit in the bottom, filled it again, let it dry out, filled it again, let it dry out, and just kept doing that until I had a level of liquid in there that had gone solid, and then just put in a black wash in there and it made it look like oil. Now let me get the camera off the wiggly bit and I'll show you some close-up shots. Give me a second. Okay, so here is inside. Now apologies for the wobbly cam, I'm holding it in my hand obviously. Here's inside the cab, the cockpit. What I did here was I took a chunk out the steering wheel to give it the yoke effect. All these centre console parts here in the gear shift, I think the gear shift might have been in there already, but all the rest of this is bits from a Panzer IV, the Tamiya 135th Panzer IV, that I just thought looked like the centre console part, and it just happened to have a bit where the gear stick will fit in there, and this looks like a cup holder, so I thought it was brilliant. Didn't do much else to it. That's the knapsack on the back, you can see there, if I can get it to focus. Again, it's just, I think it was a piece of t-shirt material, rolled up, formed in place with white glue thinned down, painted, washed, and then the straps are just pieces of plastic card painted all over. The last bit in there of any interest is this blaster. Let me see if I can focus on that. Go around the other way, might be able to see it better. Hang on. See it a bit better with the light on it. That blaster, some of you may recognise, that's from a Lego Stormtrooper. How cool is that? It's a Lego blaster that just happens to fit roughly about the right size. So I was dead chuffed with that. Lego being used. I'll see if I can show you the back. Let me get the lighting sorted out. Hang on. Okay, here's the back. It's, if I remember rightly, it's the stuff from the kit straight out, but then I also added some bits of wire, and again, it's just fuse wire. Drilled some holes, put some fuse wire in there, just to give it that look. The engine, if we move into that, let me move up here. The engine, again, is just the stock engine, but I added some bits of fuse wire, twisted. I drilled basically there were little holes in there for some stuff, but what I did was I added some more holes, a little pin vise, and just put in some wire going through it, just to give it that kind of cabled look. And you can see down there, hopefully, if I can get it to focus, come on, there we go, is the bucket with stuff in it. And again, that's just white PVA glue, built up in layers to make like an oily residue, and then given a little wash of gloss black paint just to make it look shiny, and some dry brushing on the bucket. And it just looks like it's catching gunk from the engine, because this piece, I can't remember if I just told you this, is subtitled Bad Place to Break Down. So let's have a look at the tools in the box. And by tools in the box, I mean this box with stuff in it, spare parts. This is a mixture of, let me get my pointy stick, parts from the kit like this. I can't remember if why they were in the kit, because you don't use them here. I think these were from the truck stop kit. I think they're brake discs for a truck. So you got those. These little round things, tubes, are bits of Lego. Again, don't be afraid to use pieces of Lego in your models. They're just basically pre-formed, get to focus, pre-formed plastic parts. They're perfect. And more little things there, and I've just painted those up to look rusty, so it's suggesting perhaps he's taken this off the engine here, because this is knackered, and he's got a spare one to replace it with. See, it's all about telling a story with a diorama. We have some fuse wire again on here, and I think a couple of little greebles I stuck on there, and some fuse wire, again just drilled holes. I think this is I can't remember if this is on the kit or if this is a petrol cap I added from somewhere else. And this is an air conditioning unit from a truck, which I just basically unceremoniously plonked on the bonnet, which is brilliant. And I think I did these little handles as well, but I can't remember what they're from. And some of that comes with the kit, that little thing there. But I'm quite pleased with that. That's a panel off a Panzer IV, and this is the air conditioning unit. Tools are from the truck stop kit. There we go. Let's have a look at the figure. Now the figure, I'll see if this is going to be hard to show because I can't get close to him. The back of him, first of all. This is the Verlinden Pilot. Now, I did make a bit of a goof with this. I'm not very good at figures, and this was the first proper real figure I painted. So I'm quite pleased with his outfit. I've given him some colouring on the head, and this is all going to be out of focus, so apologies. It won't want to focus on the figure because it's a gimp. Just painted him up. Added some strapping on his belt with plastic card. Gave him a little... You can't really see from this angle. Let me see if I can turn him around. Hang on. Right, here we go. Now, he looks overexposed, and I've just spent 5 minutes trying to get this camera to not overexpose on him, but it's because the black background, and well, it's not just the black background, this is an incredibly hard model to photograph. I don't know why. This whole thing, I've never had much luck, which is why the photographs anywhere of this kit always look overexposed. But you can see we've added little decals to him. That's off an R5 droid. Put a decal on his leg there. And yeah, we give him some orange goggles. And like I say, I'm not the best at painting figures, so it's a bit of a hodgepodge. It came out all right. It was a beautiful figure. I did leave a big seam down the side of his arm there. You can see I didn't fill that in. I forgot after I started painting him. So that's the figure. Pretty good. He's just mounted onto the base with a little tiny bit of brass rod. And again, apologies, I can't get it to white balance to not overexpose his face. But he kind of looked, I saw him and thought, well, he looks like he's standing there going, oh, for God's sake, I've broken my car. So he's stuck in the middle of nowhere doing repairs, which is what this diorama suggests. But one last thing to show you, perhaps. There we go, proper white balance. On the windshield, I did, looking at studio shots of the actual land speeder they used, they had this kind of build-up of dirt and dust on the windscreen. It wasn't nice and shiny, it was all battered. And all I did was, quite simply, got some sandy coloured, well, I got some white oil paint and mixed in some sand coloured pigments, so it was a bit rough. And then I just basically dry brushed that onto the windscreen, sprinkled over some more pigments, and then after a while I just kind of blew it off and brushed it off, and as the oil paint dried, it left that kind of dry brushed patchy effect, and the powders and pigments that were not mixed into the paint stayed behind, and you get that kind of dusty pigment look. Now, I had to do that very last thing. I couldn't do it when this model was finally matte varnished. I had to do it without the windshield on, otherwise I would have matte varnished the windshield. So that was the last thing I did, and it's not brilliant, but it works. It looks quite cool to me. It's a bit regular, and you know, the bumps. I'm trying to gesture with my hand with the camera in my hand, and it's just making the camera go like that. You moron. All the chipping was done with chipping fluids. Basically, I painted the whole thing. I actually painted it a bluey colour first, and it didn't work, so I repainted it yellow. So there's like a blue undercoat, there's a rust-coloured undercoat with chipping fluid being put on each one. Then the yellow was painted over the top. Then the more chipping fluid was put on, and then the white was painted over the top, and then all the chipping fluid was removed, and you got this patchwork colour effect with the grey and the rust and the yellow and the white. And then it was given a smoke wash, because at this point I was doing lots of smoke washes, and I will go back to smoke washes. They are brilliant. Given a smoke wash, and then other weathering and dry brushing was done. A lot of dry brushing with Starship Filth. And because these side grills were on, oh there, hello colour. Because these side grills were on when I matte varnished it, of course they came out not shiny. So yeah, so it came out pretty well. So all in all, it is actually not a bad kit. If you know, it's only like 20 quid or something. Come on, focus, dear. Camera does not want to cooperate today. So all in all, a bit like the AT-AT they've just released, it's not actually a bad kit. Well, I mean, it's a terrible kit, but if you put some work into it, give it a good paint job and do a bit of custom work, it can come out looking pretty good, as long as you don't want to recreate, you know, specifically Luke's speeder, because that's a pain in the bum to try and paint the stripes on, which is why I didn't do them on this. I did white stripes instead. But, you know, with a bit of work, some extra pits and some greebles, you could make a really good looking land speeder. Now, it does say 1/14 scale on the box. It's not 1/14 scale. It's more like 1/24 scale. As you can see, that's a 1/24 scale figure, and it looks about right. The figures that come with it, as usual, are the typical Revell, somebody's taken some really bad drugs when they were pregnant kind of figures. So you can just throw those away. But yeah, no, a bit of work, a bit of extra stuff, and it comes out looking all right. So I'm really pleased with this. It's a really nice kit. And if you're wondering why I've still got these, by the way, and they show as sold on my website, it's me mum. She keeps buying my stuff. I quite like it. She likes some of the stuff, so she loved this when she saw it and bought it. So I still have access to it. Handy access to take pictures. So yeah, this and I think a couple of others that I still have access to because my mum bought them. Thanks, Mum. Yeah, she loves them. So that's the land speeder. On to, I think that's it for Star Wars kits now. So on to a few others. We're going to go way back in time to dinosaurs and everything when I was a kid. So let's go and get the next one. And not a wobbly camera, obviously. Oh, if you're wondering how it stood up, by the way, I totally didn't tell you, did I? I didn't show how it was mounted. Hello. I could keep it a secret, but what it is, if you can get under there, I don't know if you'll see, let me get the light. You get under there, you can see. It's mounted on acrylic rods. How clever is that? So it looks like it's hoverating, but it's not, it's just stuck on acrylic rods. On to the next one. Yeah, when I said that was the last Star Wars kit, I kind of lied a little bit. I forgot about my Y-Wing. I don't know. This is my Fine Molds 1/72 scale Y-Wing. And this is about, what, 3 or 4 years old? I think 4 or 5 years old. Like the ones, I kind of did them all in at the same time. I went through a little Star Wars kick as I was doing all the Fine Molds kits because I realised they were brilliant. And they were kind of really the first kits I got into when I got back into modelling. So it's the 1/72 scale. It's a really nice little kit. Again, it's out of print, no longer exists, unless this is part of Revell's master range, which is really the only time I'm ever going to tell you to buy a Revell kit. Lots of exquisite detail. Compared to the Bandai kit, don't know, maybe a little less actually, maybe not quite as accurate, but this of course is a glue kit, not a snap fit. Now the one thing I will say is the tubes and pipes on here were easier to deal with than on the Bandai one because they're glued on, but the tubes underneath, oh, they're like 3 tubes that there's nowhere for them to glue in. They don't have holes, they just place them in place and glue them. That was a bit rubbish, but yeah, beautiful little kit. Again, it was rattle can, so it was just like all painted black, rattle can black, and then rattle canned over with, like, I think the TS16, I think again was the base colour. Smoke wash, a couple of very thin smoke washes, and then streaking with pastels and oils. Same thing. I was using Starship Filth by this point. I discovered the joy of filth. So yeah, a really lovely little kit. Again, it comes with multiple decals for different versions. So I kind of mixed and matched and made my own wiring, not like gold lead or anything like that. I liked particular bits of it. I like the stripe on the top of the canopy, and I like some other bits and bobs. They give you, I think, in other kits they give you worn and clean decals, so markings where they've got chips and stuff and markings where they don't. I can't remember if they do on this one, but on this what I did was I chipped the decals a bit with the blade to get some chips in, I think. But yeah, that's the wiring. Not really much to say about that one. Oh, if you're wondering where the droid is, when I said earlier about how I lost a droid on the X-Wing, it wasn't the X-Wing, it was this, I got it wrong. It was the R2 droid from this. I decided to bite the bullet and do an R2 droid. Yeah, they're kind of hard because they're so small you can't really paint them without them looking like ass. And if you use the decals are kind of hit and miss as to whether they go on right. So I sat in the garden one nice hot sunny summer's day doing a bit of weathering on this, and the droid was on the table and it pinged off and it went onto our patio, which is completely flat with no plants, no just flat patio. So anything that lands on there stays on there. Vanished, gone, went into a portal of doom, never to be seen again. So even now, all these years later, even now, every time I go out there, I have a quick look down on the floor and just see if I can see him somewhere. We checked all the little corners, all the little gaps down the wall. We even checked in some corners where the big spiders lived, and I got dead brave and I lifted things up. It wasn't there. I did see the big spiders, I just didn't see the R2. So I think either the spiders ate it, or it's currently in some other part of the world through a portal of doom. Somebody's there going, why's an R2 on the floor? Half painted silver, and that's as far as I got. So yeah, no droid. Oh well, never mind. So that is the 1/72 scale Fine Molds Y-Wing, and that is the last Star Wars kit, I think. Don't hold me to that. I think it is. I think. What's in the rest of my cabinet? Yeah, I think it is. On to the next one. Okay, now we really are off the Star Wars and on to, well, back to my childhood now. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago. These were, I think, some of the last kits I made before I stopped model making for a long time. And this is the Tamiya 135th SAS Jeep, Desert Rat style, and a couple of dudes, Wehrmacht, from, I think, the Field Kitchen set, all very old sets. Now, these were made in, I have to guess when I say this, I'm probably going to say late 1980s, and it was just as I started to get adventurous with kits. I started doing weathering and custom building. so you won't really see. But on the German soldier here, there's a guy eating soup and a guy eating bread, or carrying bread. This guy eating soup, I've put 2 little straps on his helmet, on his Stahlhelm. You can't really see them, but they're there on each side. Just tiny little strips of plastic card. And on the Jeep, I added, what did I add? I had some straps to the knapsacks and things. There's a canteen there with a strap on it. I added this roll of netting in the back, which is just literally a piece of net curtain. And like the Land Speeder, it's got some webbing or plastic leather strapping made out of plastic card. I also used a really fine piece of thread for the strap on this MP40. I could have used a piece of plastic card, but it's just a piece of string tied round, and that was kind of the extent of my customizing when I was younger, much younger, in the days before my current oldness. If I remember rightly, it's all Tamiya paints. It was basically all painted, brush painted. Get this, no priming, brush painted, and this is what, 30, let's say 86, 96, 2006, 30 years old, and it was just brush painted with no primer, right onto the plastic. All the weathering was done with my knowledge at the time of dry brushing, was basically with the same sand colour that I think I painted the bodywork with. But it seems to work alright on the tyres. And then I think flat black. Oh, there's a custom made bit of thing there. I think there's a piece of handkerchief, if I remember rightly, and again a leather strap made out of some plastic card. So yeah, it was just dry brushed, and I think there was a bit of a wash done with a rusty colour, because obviously you get lots of rust in the desert. Hello. And then some black, and that was it. That was it. The dudes over there, I'm not sure, I think they just got a bit of a black wash. And figure painting was never my strong point, and I'll be really honest, this was painted in 1986. I'm probably still at that similar level now. Like the guy in the back here, the shading on his sort of turban thing, his headdress was just a black wash, and then his face was quite simply painted flesh, and then a red-brown wash, if I remember rightly, just to give him some detail. And then his beard was painted a darker brown. I'll see if I can get lower for you so you can see his face. Hang on. As he goes past. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe not. Are you going to give us your face? Maybe a little. So yeah, so, I mean, I was what? 17, 16, something like that. I can't remember how old I am now. I'm not hundreds of years old. And that's when I had good eyesight, so I could do things like paint the little details on the collars on their jackets. Nowadays, I need my space helmet of space to see what I'm doing. But these two are the only surviving models from my childhood. There was a half track, that's long gone. But yeah, so 30 odd years, no priming, brush painted. Not bad, not bad. I look back at it now and I'm like, you know what? That's pretty good for 18-year-old 30 years ago. There's things I'd do differently now, obviously, a lot different, but yeah, can't go back. Can't go back. So old, so old. Okay, now we move forward in time again. This is back to when I was just getting back into model making a few years ago. And this was when I actually took my first ever trip to emodels.co.uk, who are not sponsoring this video, before you ask. And what I did was, because I was just getting back into model making, I'd just taken an old snowspeeder kit that I had in the loft from like 40 years ago and made that, and it was just ass. So I went to emodels, and I decided to relive my youth a little bit to get me back into it. So I got myself 2 Tamiya classics, the Kugelwagen Type 82 and the Opel Blitz. But we can't call it an Opel Blitz. Shh, it's a 2.5 ton cargo truck. Shh, you can't call it an Opel Blitz. There's no Opel Blitz badge on the front because Opel don't license it out. They want to deny they ever had anything to do with the war. So shh. So it's a 2.5 ton cargo truck, Opel Blitz, and a Kugelwagen. And this was my first real attempt at, or first real time getting back into airbrushing, because I'd done a little bit of airbrushing when I was younger and I was basically ass. But this was getting back into airbrushing. It was getting back into figure painting. It was getting back into what I used to do as a kid, which was Tamiya kits. And I adore these 2 kits. What I learned was, this kit is actually horrible. It's horrible. It's awful. Oh, I hated it. I hated the build. It was not pleasant. It was a shock to my memory that it was not as much of a fun build that I remember from my youth. It's just small and fiddly, and bits broke off, and then I tried some funky stuff with the windscreen and it went wrong, so the windscreen got clouded, but then I just kind of folded it down and made it look like it was just covered in dust. All German grey. Now it doesn't look like German grey, it looks lighter than German grey, and there's a trick to that. What I did was, it was all painted German grey, very dark blue. Then it was given some washes with, I think, just black acrylic wash. Just washed all over it, a couple of coats to get into all the recesses. It's very dark. Then, what I did was, I got, remember I said earlier on, the Tamiya Weathering Master Pastels, the light blue colour, light grey, light grey colour I think it's called. I just went over that. I started dabbing it around. Now when you first put it on, it looks like you've got the dark grey vehicle and these big patchy bits of light grey, and it's like, oh no, it's horrible. But then when you matte varnish it, the pastel blends in and fades away, and it came up with this beautiful blend of light and dark that gave it this proper sort of classic German blue-grey colour. And then I went over with some earth tone pastels, some of the sand and stuff, just generously around the sides and the wheel arches. And again, with pastels, you have to put on more than you think, like on the mudguards here. Put on more than you think you need, so it looks like a comic book thing, because when you do matte varnish it, it will fade and it will blend and it will become more subtle. So yeah, so I am actually really pleased with it. They are really nicely done. I'm not congratulating myself. I mean, considering I hadn't done model making for 20 or 30 years and I got back into it, I don't think I did such a bad job. I was still figuring out airbrushing, I was still figuring out pastels, getting back into it. I didn't do a bad job. The face on the driver of the Kubelwagen, when I first painted him, kind of looked like George W. Bush. I can't get close enough to show you because the camera won't go that far, but kind of looked like George W. Bush, which I thought was just hilarious. The dudes inside the cab here, you can't really see them and they didn't come out that well. The back of the truck here, one boondoggle. I did make some straps for the jerry cans out of leather, out of plastic card. Same with the buckle and an extra bit bent back. Jerry cans, oh, jerry cans, I hate jerry cans. Whenever you see me and Ted talking and one of us mentions jerry cans, oh. And this tarpaulin in the back, a folded up tarpaulin, do you know what that's made from? That's a post-it note. It's a post-it note folded up, and then weirdly I just kind of went over it with some Tamiya extra thin cement, a few coats, just to soften it, break the fibres, squish it and hold it in place, and then it was painted. So that, yeah, it's a post-it note. How cool is that? When I was much younger, I said earlier on about half track that I don't have anymore, that had a Nazi flag on the bonnet folded up as if it had been placed there while they were moving it, and that again was a post-it note that I, you know, softened up with glue, let it set like a folded flag, and then painted the sort of hints of a red and white on it and the swastika and stuff. But yeah, it's a post-it note. How cool is that? So that's those. What's next? Next is Colonial Viper coming up next on this channel. Stay tuned. And so we come to the last one, my Colonial Viper. Now this isn't the one that I filmed for e-models, I don't think. I'm kind of confused now. Yeah, was it? No, this isn't the one I filmed for e-models. This is one I made before then. I made one, then I filmed one for e-models. This is the Mobius Colonial Viper. The one I filmed for e-models was the Revell Colonial Viper, which is the same kit, just released by Revell. It had better decals. This is the one I made about a year or so before, which is the Mobius Colonial Viper. And as you can see, the weathering is terrible. It's so overdone. There's so much dry brushing of Starship filth, especially around the avionics bay. It's like, oh. And again, this hasn't been in the cabin. It's been sat exposed to air, so it's been exposed to, you know, dust and cigarette smoke and everything else, which just adds to it, I suppose. But yeah, it's not brilliant. I was still finding my feet a little bit, so it's not perfect. There's a lot of things I do differently now, and a lot of things I did do differently on the e-models one. So yeah, it's all right. It's all right. I mean, I did some what was that now? Chrome silver. I first started to use chrome silver, and smoke washes on the engine, and sometimes neat smoke allowed to pool at the base by gravity, just to give that kind of, effectively trying to give that kind of hot burned metal look. I think it was the first time I'd done a canopy as well. First time I tried masking a canopy, because I did this, I think, before the Star Wars stuff. I can't remember. It's all a blur now. It's like 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know. If I remember correctly, the red bit on the nose, I think, I can't remember if it's a decal or not. I don't think it is. I think none of these are actually decals. I think this is all painted, if I remember rightly, because the Mobius decals were, let's just be honest, complete gash. They just fell apart. They just cracked, they split, they were horrible, horrible, horrible decals. The one thing the Revell kit had going for it, well, two things were: one, they didn't make it, it was just this reboxed, so it was obviously good quality, not Revell quality. And two, the decals were far superior. On this, I think basically I had to repaint all the red striping. The only decals I used were the little markings and the thrusted things and the bits on the red stripes. So yeah, these are all red bits, are all painted, and I didn't do a bad job on the nose, on the schnoz actually. I seem to do quite a nice job there for me, because I'm rubbish at masking. Yeah, I was quite pleased with it. I think I got the extra sets for the cockpit. I think I got the 3D, get my words. I can't remember if I used the brass photo etch sets. God, talking's horrible. I think this is just the straight cockpit. The stand, which you might not see, has this kind of, let me go down, if I can do it without bonging it on the nose. The stand has this kind of starfield effect on it. And do you know what that was? In the words of Bob Ross, it was a happy accident. Because what basically happened was, I sprayed it black, rattle can, this was outdoors, remember, rattle can, sprayed it black, no problem. Then I went outside the next day and rattle canned it with the Humbrol 49 matte varnish. It was like late November when I did it, and the matte varnish was a little bit cold, just a little bit cold, and it came out all speckly. But happy accidents, it kind of looks like a starfield. Now, it's gone a bit yellow over time, but it kind of looked like a starfield. So I was like, you know what? That's actually awesome. I'm going to keep that, because I was like, oh, I'm going to have to respray it. But no, it actually came out looking kick-ass. So we have a starfield stand through no choice of my own, which was brilliant. So yeah, that's the Colonial Viperator. Like I say, I look at it now and I'm thinking, yeah, I wouldn't ever sell this because it's not worth selling. It's pap. Let's just be honest. But it was part of my formative journey, and it's fun sometimes to look at old kits and see where I came from. I think I did some seam filling. Bizarrely, I think I did better on the seams on this than I did in the one I did afterwards for remodels, but yeah, this one didn't have warped parts, let's put it that way. Revell. So yeah, I think that's the last one, to be honest. That's the last of our little trip down memory lane. I just wanted to film the ones that I haven't filmed before, because a lot of the things some of the builds I did before I did a YouTube channel, so you won't have seen them filmed before. If you're wondering why I've not filmed the U-boat that I did, not the commission one, because you remember I did a U-boat for commission, but I built one before this. There's a good reason for that. That is because when I finished the commission U-boat, the U96, I compared it to the one I made like 3 years before, and the one I made 3 years before was complete ass. So I may have got a bit rash and perhaps snapped it in half and thrown it in the bin, because it really was terrible. Looking back on it, I'm like, this is just gash. And it was taking up a massive space in my room. I'm like, I've got a huge shelf in my room taken up with this U-boat, and it's absolutely not good at all. So I kind of snapped it in half and threw it away. Oops. But that's the thing. When you're a model maker, you've got to learn when to admit your mistakes. You've got to accept that you won't always be the level of skill you are now, that your earlier stuff will probably suck, and that's fine. So for those of you starting out and you're looking at my stuff and saying, yeah, but I've had people say to me, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet, they say, your stuff's really great, but my stuff is really crap. And I'm like, how long have you been model making? Well, this is my first model. Well, there you go. Don't expect to get the most amazing results you first go out, although I have seen some work that is allegedly somebody's first ever build, and it's incredible. So, it may be brilliant. It may just be you're just starting out. Don't panic. Don't start thinking, oh my God, I'm not as good as you, and therefore... The one thing I've learned with any kind of creative endeavour, whether it's model making, drawing, music, anything, don't waste time comparing yourself to other people who've been doing it a lot longer than you have. Use them as a goal, use them as inspiration, use them to say, I want to be as good as that, I want to get to that point where I can do this, that and the other. But don't say, oh my God, I've written this piece of music and it's absolute crap compared to the works of some guy who's been writing music for 30 years. Well, there you go, there's your answer. Everybody learns, everybody develops over time. You have to learn skills. I couldn't just get on a motorbike now and not fall off and kill myself. I'd have to learn how to ride a motorbike. I couldn't walk into an operating theatre and carry out heart surgery. I'd have to learn how to carry out heart surgery, and I'd probably kill a few people on the way, but that's the whole point of the development process. So, part of the video is just to show you this stuff because it was requested. It's to show you stuff I made that you haven't seen before on video. Part of it is to show you stuff I made a few years ago, and even me, you know, again, I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but you know, you guys think I'm some amazing model maker. I'm not. I just paint stuff, and to me it looks fine, and then a year later I think it's the worst thing in the world. But you know, you can see where I've come from with these kits. And it's all processes that I've learned over the last few years. You know, and a big thanks to you guys who watch my stuff, because it keeps me going and keeps me making stuff and keeps me learning new processes. So I'll still be learning things 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, and I'll be looking back on models I'm making now and thinking, God, that's complete gash. So don't panic if you do a model and you don't think it's that good. Show it to me anyway. Send me a message, send me a PM with the photographs. I'll put it in the Reader's Build Gallery videos, because it's your first model, your second model, your third model, whatever. If you're learning, you're just starting out, you haven't got the product knowledge, you haven't got the muscle memory, you haven't got the instinct yet. And yet is the important word. It will get there. So be proud of your early builds. Look back on them in a few years. We'll know that you'll look back on them in a few years and be like, that is complete gash. But it's part of the learning process. So there you go. That's my big waffle over. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this look at some of my older kits. That's literally all I have. Everything else you've seen on video. They're all video builds. Sadly, none of my earlier builds exist. There was a Deep Space Nine that I built, and a Mackie Raider that I built many years ago in the era of that Jeep for my good friend Mike, who went to live in New Zealand. The Mackie Raider apparently got damaged or destroyed. The DS9, I don't think he took it with him to New Zealand. If he did, Mike, brilliant. I hope it survived. Don't worry if it didn't. Don't worry if you didn't take it. I don't mind. I think I've showed a photograph of those before. That's all I have, is literally maybe a photograph. Other than that, none of my other kits survive. So, thank you very much for your watching time. Take care of yourselves. Go make something cool. Don't worry if you don't think it's good. You're learning from what you're doing. I'm learning from what I'm doing. Everybody's learning. Send me the pictures anyway. Send me stuff of send me some of your early builds. If you've been making models for years, send me some of your old stuff and some of your new stuff. It's good to point and laugh at your own work sometime and say, God, what's that? Did I think that was good? So, thank you again for watching. Take care of yourselves. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, as always. Please consider supporting me on Patreon. Links are in the description, and you know where it is. Visit me on Facebook, facebook.com/modelmakingguru, and on Twitter @modelmakingguru. And don't forget the website, of course, modelmakingguru.com, which I am now actually updating. I know. I've actually got the time to update my website. Holy moly. Somebody did say it wasn't loading for them. It can be really slow sometimes. If you go to modelmakingguru.com and it's sitting there for a second, just be patient. It does take a few seconds to load. The host is a bit slow sometimes. So it does work. It's just a bit. And I wouldn't bother looking at it on mobiles because it's kind of rubbish. I've formatted it for mobiles, but it just comes out looking pap. So stick to desktop. Right. Anyway, I will bugger off. Thank you so much again. Take care. Go build something. Adios, amoebas.